This is Civilization 6, a wonderful historical 4X strategy game with lots of yields to manage and an empire to build, with wonderful historical leaders. This is Humankind, a sandbox, again, 4X historical strategy game with a twist. You choose a different culture each era instead of choosing one defined leader. That's the big difference, but throughout this video, I'm going to take you through some more detail. Between the two 4X historical strategy giants, Civilization 6 on this side with its unique district planning, and Humankind on this side with its more open Neolithic era and a more basic, simple, but enjoyable experience. In this video, I'm going to break them both down from the glory that is Civilization 6's wonderful system. 4 wonders that Humankind lags behind in, or whether it's Humankind's Neolithic era, the most unique feature added probably across both games, where you can play Humankind as a hunting party, not even a culture from history yet, indeed the caveman age, if you will. And of course, extreme combat differences between the two games as well. Sit back and relax, I'm going to show you some appropriate footage for them both. I'm going to cater this video both to Civilization newbies and Humankind extraordinaires and everyone in between to try and break down which one of these games is the best deal for you and what are the big differences between them. And really, I think we should start from the start. What is the same? Well, they're both 4X. Explore, expand, exploit, and exterminate your foes is what that means if you're unfamiliar with a 4X game. Now that we're at the base level, let's talk about something else, because I hear a lot, is Humankind a Civ clone? Is Humankind better than Civ? Is Civ 6 better than Humankind? There's a lot of competition and a lot of, unfortunately, I feel like unjustified friction between the two. So let me dig in. Here you can see Humankind's combat, and I want to start with combat, okay? Yes, they're both 4X games, yes, we're building an empire, but how do they differ, and which one should you buy? Which one is better for you? In terms of combat, the key difference, you can see it playing out here during my recent multiplayer live stream. Actually, I pulled this from, more on that in a minute, but in Humankind, essentially, combat is played out in its own battlefield. You can see here a white line has been drawn, and my units, each unit, holds its own tile in the world. However, when you're moving them around the world, you can keep them collected into an army. Therefore, Humankind, in my opinion, makes it not only easier to maneuver units around the map, in terms of it takes less time, it's arguably more intuitive, but also its battles can be more grand, while still being fairly simple, right? What you're seeing here is not particularly complex. It's a few units on a board, you move them around, and they have various strengths and weaknesses depending on the type of unit they are, where they're standing if there's a river. It's the same, of course, in Civilization. Civilization, however, differs in that its combat is not as advanced and fluid as Humankind's. Units are a little more limited in their differences between each other and their strengths. However, to touch on Civ a bit, and the reason why you're seeing this footage is because of the district system and planning an empire. Aside from combat and extermination, here we are again exterminating, the other big hit after you've fought these grand battles in Humankind will be, how do I expand my empire in either of these games? In Civilization 6, you can see here on screen, the system is actually a little bit more flexible, but also more constrained. Let me tell you why. In Civilization 6, the map that you're seeing here is entirely open. You can settle a city wherever you want, so long as it's not right next door to another. However, in Humankind, it's actually quite different. You'll see here in this clip, here's my city of Babylon that I've chosen to place in the predefined territory. I can place it where I want. Likewise, as I zoom out, you'll see the map. The territories are predefined by those dotted lines. In Civilization, however, of course, they're not. You can place your city where you want, and it doesn't define a strict geographic boundary. This has its ups and downs. For example, it's slightly more flexible in Civ. However, in Humankind, you can guarantee that a natural wonder will be in a certain part of the world. If I take this territory, I will also take Mount Everest with it. For example, Nepal, instead of someone else coming along and settling their Nepal on top of yours and stealing it. It has its ups and downs, and ultimately it's up to you. The only other thing to note here, as you can see, is the district system. In Civilization, the district system is, in my opinion, a little bit more archaic. Once you build a district, for example, you can't burn it down and replace it. And you can only build one type of district per city, Whereas in Humankind, it's a lot more open. Every era, which we'll talk on more soon, has its own unique culture with districts, and you can place them either spanning from the city or in their own locations where they're allowed. Anyway, let's talk about those culture systems. Here you can see I'm choosing my culture in the industrial era, as I move through to the industrial stage of the game. Indeed, in all 6 eras, you can choose from, at the moment, 1 of 10 historical cultures to play. Do you play as the historical leader of that culture, like in Civ? No. However, you can change your culture a lot. That's a big difference. The other one is here in the civics and society screen. How do you manage your people? In Humankind, you have this system with historical societal axes, and the policies that you enact impact how your society shapes. Will you be progressive and favour more science, or traditional and favour more religion? It's up to you. Civilization 6's I won't touch on too much, but it's broadly the same, except for they use policy cards instead of a civics tree. By and large, in my opinion, the policy card system is a wee bit more out of date. Now that we've talked about those systems, let's reflect a little bit more on the game more broadly while I send my ships across the Polish capital and see if I can sink my foe. But actually, let's talk victory conditions, because that matters too. In Humankind, you earn era stars in each of the game's era, and these stars, as you can see on screen here, are attributed to different things. Research a certain number of techs, you get your science. Build a certain number of districts, you get your builder. Grow a certain number of people, you get your agrarian. And attach a certain number of territories, you guessed it, you get your expansionist stars. Earn a certain number, move through to the next era, and ultimately they are your victory condition. You can think of them as little accolades that you earn throughout the game. Fame and prestige is what the victory in Humankind is about. It's not about making it to space, it's about the journey of getting there. And really, that's the key difference between their victories. Civilization 6, on the other hand, of course, favours more of a routine and planned victory condition. If your victory condition is science, you choose a scientific culture, you try and build up your science, defend yourself, and ultimately build a spaceship to go to the moon. In Humankind, you can play more flexibly and more adaptively, because every era that you move through, you're potentially completely changing your culture. Here I'm playing as the Australians, an industrialist culture using my militarist might. However, at an earlier point in the game, I was playing as a scientific culture because I felt that science was my weakness and I wanted to build my empire up. And that is really the key difference to how you're going to play these two games. In practice, how are they different? Well, there are lots of little differences. Here you can see I'm building my iron mine to extract some iron, and I'm thinking about where I want to place my holy site. Both games have religion. In Humankind, religion is stepped back. It is basic, and it happens at a high level. You do what I'm doing here, find a place to build your holy site, and that will naturally push religious pressure across the map through trade routes, adjacencies, and other diplomatic dealings. In Civilization, though, it's much different, much more different. You would have seen some footage from it already at the start of the video. It's much more controlled. You have a lot more control over your religion, your religious beliefs, buildings, and so on and so forth. There's a lot more detail to constructing a religion and spreading it. In Civilization 6, of course, for those unfamiliar, you send a lot of units around the map. You have to manually control little dudes to spread the religion. In Humankind, you don't get that option. It happens more passively. That's just one example of how these two games differ. So here, around the 2/3 mark, I want to firstly address the first question from the start of the video. Is Humankind a Civ clone? Is Civilization 6 the same as Humankind? No. Are they in the same genre? Yes. Have they inspired each other? Absolutely. Are they the same? Are they clones? No. Humankind is strongly inspired by Amplitude Studios' previous work in the likes of Endless Space and so on, and of course Civ is a 30-year-old franchise at this point. One of the founding fathers of the 4X genre, although not the founding father, so let's not give it too much credit. However, back to the two games. The next thing I want to talk to you, wonderful people, about is in general the complexity and playability of the games. Here's that religious screen I was talking about earlier, by the way. Overall, and this is more my opinion, but I want you to know it's an opinion based off thousands and thousands of hours and years of experience in Civ. lots of experience of Humankind since it released in August 2021, and really historical games more broadly. I love history. I love strategy. These games are my jam. So, in my opinion, what are the difference between them? I think the biggest one, aside from the victories, is going to be actually, like, fundamentally how these games play. Civilization 6, here you can see it on screen, is a more complex experience. Not because of everything that's going on here, although if you look up to the top right, you'll see a lot of resources. Whereas Humankind's UI, of course, looking at it now, is cleaner. Why? Well, it does have the benefit of time on its side. Humankind released in 2021, Civilization 6 released in 2016. However, of course, it's important to note that that blade is double-edged. Civilization 6 has been out for 5 years, which means it has a lot of DLC and extra content to offer. Humankind is the more modern, clean experience that does not have the same level of depth that Civ does. Some people will think that's a good thing. Other people will think that's a terrible thing. I'm on the fence, I'll let you know at the end. But now I want to talk multiplayer. Not many of you will play it, but some will. Here are some very quick spliced highlights of my recent Humankind multiplayer match. I've of course played multiplayer in Civilization as well. Do either of them function well in multiplayer? The answer is honestly no. Are they both enjoyable in multiplayer? The answer is yes. Humankind had a rocky start, but honestly, it's shaped up very, very well. It's a reasonably solid multiplayer experience now, and it does not suffer the same desync issues that Civilization has. Either way, I argue if you're looking either of these games for a multiplayer experience, it's not going to be the best, but they're both very, very enjoyable. I can't fit everything about both of them into a 10 to 15 minute video, so before I move to my buyer's recommendations next on which one you should buy, here's a rapid fire section while we watch Petra being built in Memeville. First and foremost, natural and cultural wonders. Civilization takes the cake. They are more detailed, more numerous, and much more specific. However, of course, that does add more complexity to the overall package. Other rapid-fire considerations include, of course, the big one, diplomacy. Civilization 6 handles global diplomacy better than Humankind in terms of world congress and political decisions. However, at a basic level, the trade and diplomacy interface in Humankind is more manageable, more easier to understand, and does its base job well. Other rapid-fire considerations include graphics. Humankind takes the cake. Modding. Both games are good. Humankind has a better modding system, but it's much newer, so time will tell. At the moment, Civilization wins on that front. And now, let's move through into my buyer's recs. Now as we move through into the end of the video here, you can see a game of Humankind ending, and I'm going to give my final thoughts. I think that they're both fantastic historical strategy games. Humankind is newer. Civilization 6 has much more DLC. Humankind at retail is cheaper and makes it the better deal at retail price, hands down. It is of course also a newer experience. When these games go on special, it flips onto its head. You can pick up the Civilization 6 Anthology with all of its fantastic DLC that has added features that Humankind doesn't have at the moment, like extreme weather events and climate. You can get the Civilization 6 Anthology for 85% off, and when it comes to those levels of discount at the moment, I would not go past Civilization 6 as a fantastic buy and entry point into the 4X world, or a wonderful way to expand your 4X library. Indeed, that flair of the historical leaders will always keep me coming back for more. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one, and if you enjoyed, please do leave a like rating. I know that these videos can reach new audiences, and if you're one of them, welcome in. If you're a regular, I love you back. And I'll see you next time.